Your D&D game is a heart attack waiting to happen. I'm not talking about a physical heart attack arrest, God forbid. No, I'm talking about the heartbeat of your game, tempo. Right now, your game has an unhealthy heart. Either it's beating too fast or too slow, and it's killing your game. But don't worry, I'm going to explain this analogy and a few more today. And after today's episode, your pacing will be on point. Plus, plus you'll find that prep will be a little bit easier. Welcome back to How to Be a Better DM. I'm your host, Justin Lewis, a podcaster, professional dungeon master, and student of the game. This is the show for dungeon masters who want to uncover the arcane secrets of enthralling anyone with their engaging storytelling without spending all of your time, money, or effort doing so. For those of you who are new to the show, back in the summer of 2025, we made a decision to put out less produced content in an effort to make it so we can still keep producing content. So you'll hear my baby in the background. But also on Mondays, we do have another segment called Creative Contraband, where host Danny sneaks techniques and concepts from other disciplines, other arts, into Dungeons and Dragons. So highly, highly entertaining, highly useful. He is a very smart individual. Frankly, his podcasts are challenging me to try and make mine better, for sure. So I appreciate that, Danny, and I appreciate your addition to our show. And I think all around it's just made everything better. So on today's show, we're going to dive into tempo. It's a topic that not many people talk about, and if they do, it's really only in passing. I haven't come across anyone diving into frameworks or concepts to simplify it, but I'm going to give you a few analogies to help you develop tempo mastery. And here's a quick secret. Mastering tempo is one of the arts of being a dungeon master. Now, there are arts and there are sciences, and I would say tempo mastery is it leans more towards arts. Now, there's likely some scientific ways to go about doing it, but it does require a fine touch and a delicate hand. After the show, you're going to know when to slow things down or speed things up. You'll be able to stretch the tension that much longer or cut it off if need be. And you'll be able to conduct your players like an orchestra. Plus, I'm going to add a new segment at the end of today's show where I'm going to part the curtains and show you a glimpse of one of my Dungeon Master rules that you've probably seen on TikTok or Instagram, one of the two. But first, let's talk about what is tempo. In Italian, tempo means time. But in this context, the word is more accurately defined as timing. One of the hallmarks of amazing stories is the crashing of different elements in the same space and time. For example, in The Lord of the Rings, timing is everything. Imagine if Frodo and the gang took the ring to Mordor 50 years before Sauron was a threat again. They would just waltz up to Mount Doom, no problem. Easy peasy, drop the ring in, and we're away to tea. Or take Star Wars. Imagine Han, Luke, and Leia arrive at Cloud City weeks before the Empire sets a trap. I guess in that case, Luke probably wouldn't have arrived at Cloud City, but you get my point. There wouldn't be a story. Timing matters. But tempo takes things a step further. It turns a chain of events into an experience. And to help explain things, I'm going to refer to my first analogy. This one is going to really simplify tempo for you in your games. Let's compare D&D to music. Now, I hope some of you out there are musicians. If not, you're just going to have to learn some music theory here with me today. In music, tempo literally means how fast or how slow you play a song, but it goes beyond that. See, in every piece of music, there's what's called a time signature. That tells the musician how many beats per measure and what note gets the beat. It's like a cipher key for a secret code telling you how to read the music, essentially, and how to interpret it, putting it to speed and rhythm. The tempo for each piece is useful because it can also denote a feeling. For example, they often use Italian words like allegro, which means happy, or andante, which means a walking pace, or veloce, which means fast. It tells you how many beats per minute to play the music, but also the feeling behind the speed. So how is this like D&D? Well, you could theoretically use this same concept in D&D. A normal time signature, a very common one, is 4/4, meaning the quarter note or the fourth note gets the beat, and there are four beats in a measure. So you can have four quarter notes in a measure, or you can have one whole note, which is four beats or four counts in a measure. And that kind of gives you an idea of how many notes per measure you could have. In D&D, let's say combat encounters get one beat. Role-playing encounters get two beats. Exploration gets one beat, and lore dumps get four beats. So, just as an example, if you pick this tempo and you have two role-playing session or encounters in a session, one combat encounter, and a big old lore dump, you've actually had a pretty productive session. Your tempo is fast because lots of things are happening. On the other hand, if you have a session where the entire encounter is the entire session is one encounter, well, that's a slower paced game. Now, an important thing to note here is that fast, slow doesn't matter. What matters is how you use it, to what effect. Often in music, you slow things down to emphasize the feeling in the music at a given moment, or to allow a bigger emphasis on the volume, right? So oftentimes you'll slow things down at the same time you quiet things down. You could also have a great effect by slowing things down and making it louder, or speeding things up and making it very quiet. See, again, it's not how fast or how slow the game is, but the effect you're having on your players. Now, let's take this analogy a step further, and I hope I haven't lost you. Let's say, instead of just playing a piece of music, we are conducting an orchestra and we are performing a concert, right? We've set the stage, our players are ready, we've brought the audience. Theoretically, before this point in time, we've chosen our music. But when you choose music for a concert, and you can think in terms of orchestra, you can think in terms of rock band, whatever you want. You create a set list. You create a set list that complements itself. Each song lends itself to the set list and is for the audience. Now, how does this translate to D&D? Well, I guess let me explain the analogy a little bit further. Within the set list, you're going to have songs that might be faster paced, slower paced, but everything's going to contribute to the general feel of the concert. You can also choose to have an intermission or a couple of breaks, if you so choose. That also is important because they help set the feel of the concert. Sometimes you'll come back to the show with a pretty vivacious song first up right after a break to get people re-engaged. Now, all of this is useful in thinking about D&D, but in terms of the game, think of concert as your campaign and think of songs as story arcs. And that should help you understand, okay, now this particular story arc is going to have a bit of a faster pace. The overall concert is going to have somewhat of a faster pace. And all of the story arcs, all the songs are going to play into the same theme with minor variances. Or there's going to be a few songs that are directly outside the theme, specifically to highlight the theme, to help you think about the theme because it's going to feel different. Now, it's important to also note that tempo and volume change often during music. In fact, even the time signature can change, right? So with that in mind, with any individual story arc, think about when and how your tempo should change, how your time signature should change, right? This is important. And it's a great way to think about tempo in a game because let's say your theme is tragedy and how to cope with tragedy, right? Now, one would maybe think that coping with tragedy is a long term thing, so possibly the tempo should be slow. You could theoretically have a couple of story arcs, though, highlighting how quickly tragedy happens and how often tragedy happens in series, one right after the other. So, in that case, you might have a story arc with fast pacing, right? Things happen one right after the other. Hopefully, this analogy has helped you think about your game and how to speed things up or slow things down. Now, I know one major mistake I often make is intentionally trying to slow things down because I feel like my players are progressing too fast. And this is an erroneous assumption, especially if the tempo of the game is such that fast progression is what I've been actually leading to, whether by intent or on accident. Regardless, sometimes you need to think about the tempo of the game and at all times ask yourself, what's the tempo and why is the tempo this way? And does it need to change? Okay, so that was the first analogy, and I think I went a little bit too hard. Now let's go to the second analogy. And I started the episode with this analogy. The tempo is the heartbeat of your game. Now, we're going to drift away from music and talk about physical health, right? Your heart is a muscle. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, so if I get any of this wrong, just disregard it and go with it. Your heart is a muscle, and in physical training, athletic conditioning, you need what's called conditioning, which is traditionally a term used to reference, cardio activity, but it is generally kind of a long term, or not a long term, but like a long. It's based on endurance, right? And the goal is to get it so your heart can transfer blood throughout your body in an effective way without being in a point of danger. How does this translate to D&D? Well, if you keep your heart going too fast or too long, too fast for too long or too slow for too long, the heart is going to have issues. It's going to die. Your players, if you have your pacing too fast, stuff is happening, they don't have a second to breathe, the game will fizzle out. On the other hand, if your heart is too slow, your game will fizzle out as well, simply because that nothing magical is going to happen. And the sense of wonder and excitement is going to fade and people will drift away from your game. So you need to monitor the heartbeat of your game. Now, to that end, games are about conflict, right? And naturally, when conflict happens, things can speed up. Progression can speed up. I don't know another fancy word for speeding up. But going back to the heart, you can't just run a marathon out of the blue. You'll likely need some conditioning. And this is important. Again, going back to campaign planning and arc planning, story arc planning, you might have some sessions, some arcs be faster paced and some be slower. But you need to think of the overall tempo arc in your campaign and the finale that you're trying to build towards. Generally, the finales are very exciting. The volume, if you will, is high. The tempo is fast. If you jump to that, it's not going to feel earned, and the game will likely not uh, be as satisfying in the end. So you need to condition your players. You need to have steadily rising tempos here and there with necessary breaks to allow them to catch their breath, right? Again, think of it like training. In a years long campaign, some arcs are going to have tempo that seems to be continually rising, and then in between arcs you can have those minor breaks. Or you might have a full session or a story arc with a different type of conditioning, right? So instead of going faster, you go deeper, and then you go right back to faster tempo, faster tempo, faster tempo, building up to your final finale. I hope that these two analogies have really helped you kind of think about tempo in a different way. I know for me, I've had a lot of issues lately with tempo and artificially slowing things down. I don't know why I do that. Maybe I just feel like I can't keep up with my players, but if the story's progressing, let it. If things are happening, let it. Um, unless you have a reason to slow it down, to highlight something. Now, I said that I was going to share the Dungeon Master, one of my Dungeon Master rules. And this one's probably not too new for everyone. I've shared it on Instagram, but this is my main Dungeon Master rule. And honestly, I might be leaning away from it, but well, I'll just tell you. Dungeon Master rule number one: the DM is the curator of the game. Now, in years past, I've said that the DM is the conductor of the game, and I do think that's true. Um, but I think it's more conductor in terms of a band or an orchestra rather than a train. And the difference is, in a jazz band, there are times when the conductor points to the drummer and gives them time for a drum solo, or gives different, like the saxophone player, a saxophone solo. Um, I think that's really important. You should give your players agency and allow them to make choices that affect the game. But more than anything, I think the Dungeon Master is the curator of the game, meaning at the end of the day, they are the ones who are trying to decide what elements should be included in the game, and their position allows them to help direct the rest of the party to a very satisfying game. Sometimes you'll have players that want to introduce things to the game that aren't conducive to, well, the game that the curator is trying to curate. So in that case, the DM needs to talk with the players and say, this is what I'm trying to do. Are you guys on board? And if so, this isn't really part of it. Like adults, you have conversations and you make choices and you allow other people to make choices, which is hard. But, you know, you are the curator. Now, that's not to say your players don't have roles, right? Your players are co-curators, but at the end of the day, they're going to look to you to make sure the game is fun. And you just need to remember that, right? It all kind of comes down on you. The buck stops with you. Um, and you know what? I might change this Dungeon Master rule moving forward because things evolve. But this is my current rule, and I try to take a lot of responsibility for my games. Um, but anyways, so there you have it. Tempo and the first Dungeon Master rule. I'm interested to see what you guys think about this episode. Like I said, Danny has been putting out such great content that it's sort of reignited in me this challenge of trying to put out better content. So I wrote most, well, at least the first half of today's show, and if it was a good show, totally let me know. If you hated it, totally let me know, and we'll find out how we can improve. Make sure you come back on Monday and Thursday next week for 2 episodes. Monday's Danny's episode, Creative Contraband. 2 episodes that are always handcrafted here on How to Be a Better DM. If you want to support the show, first of all, your love, your support is just so much. We really appreciate it. We hit 10,000 downloads last month, which is huge. I never thought I'd get that far, but um, it's crazy that we're still growing, even though we've kind of slowed things down somewhat. But if you are interested in supporting the show, the best way to do that is to hit the links in the show notes, sign up for our Discord, email newsletter, reach out to us on Instagram, so forth, or sign up for one of our partners. Our biggest and best partner right now is Worldsmith. We love them. They're a suite of TTRPG generators. I know that some of you out there aren't fans of using AI. I totally get that. Here's what I say. Don't use AI for the stuff that you really care about, but for the stuff that you absolutely hate and the stuff that is slowing down your games or preventing you from having more games, more fun, use AI, right? At the end of the day, if you're not making money from your games, use AI to make it so the games happen more often, they happen more fun. But obviously, keep in mind skill development and not outsourcing who you want to become. So those are also super important things. But another thing about Worldsmith is they uh, last year I made a one shot called Webbing Crashers. It's sort of a mix between arachnophobia and The Hangover, I guess if you can say that. And to help Worldsmith out, I ended up translating that one shot into kind of an ad lib for for Dungeon Masters. Right? It's the one shot, but then you use Worldsmith to create the monsters, create the NPCs, and every time you play that one shot, it'll be vastly different. And Worldsmith is actually incorporating it into their website soon. So I believe you should be able to get that for free if you sign up for Worldsmith. Um, but I might be wrong. So go to sessionzerostudios.com/worldsmith to check that out. Like I said, it should be free. It should allow you to use Worldsmith in a pretty fun way with not too much prep, right? You should be able to grab that one shot, read through it a couple times, and then go, and just generate everything in the game. But I've talked too much already. Thank you guys for listening to my episode. Thank you for caring about me as a person, which I know you do, even if you don't. Um, it just boggles my mind that people listen to me. Sometimes I feel so weird, just sharing some of my personality and stuff like that. But thank you. So thanks so much for everything, and we'll be back next time with another handcrafted episode. Until then, let's go ahead and roll initiative.